Hello everyone and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Talking the PS, your weekly PlayStation show where we round up all of the gaming and PlayStation news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games and up there in the digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. You're joining myself, Chris, this week alongside my man of many pixels, Mr. Richie. Welcome back.
Hello. Hello.
And we've got a great show lined up for everyone out there, but before we get into it all, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, click that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here, such as First Looks, live streams, other amazing podcasts like XPass, our weekly Xbox podcast that goes live every Monday, the day before this show, and of course, all of our other wonderful ideas that are in the pipeline, Richie, like Luna Listening, our new Amazon Luna podcast that we're still working on. We're ironing out some kinks. We're aiming to bring you that once a month, but we'll tell you more about that in the future. Show lined up, we are talking about PlayStation Studios and what they're working on because they've been awfully quiet. And in the meantime, they're acquiring other studios as well, is also in the news this week. Horizon Burning Shores reviews, Dead Island 2 reviews, and new game announcements, and much, much more. But before we get into all that, Richie, this is episode 45 of Talking the PS. Rob's not with us this week. He's got stuck doing some work-related adult things, so he's unable to make it for this week's shows. But we'll hold down the fort in his stead. This past week, we played Minecraft Legends, available now on PlayStation and Xbox, as our live stream. Every week, we play a game with you, the wonderful community. And Richie, do you want to give the audience your initial first thoughts on Minecraft Legends after we played it for about 2 hours, you, me, and Rob, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday?
It was one of them days. It was Friday.
Correct.
It was surprisingly fun, actually. I'm not a Minecraft guy. We talk about our... how much we've been involved in Minecraft over the years at the start of the stream. Mm-hmm. But basically, the answer for me is zero. It's more of a, I respect what people have done with this game, but I've never looked at it and went, I need to get involved in that. Minecraft Legends it's a lot simpler, it's less system driven. You don't have to understand all the different systems that Minecraft have and all the different blocks and stuff interact. So you kind of just right, you're on a horse, go to a village, you need to defend this village, build a wall around the village. You have these little golems and stuff that you can summon to help you fight and collect resources and stuff. But yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah,
really good.
I had loads of fun. It was best described in my take would be it's Age of Empires meets Minecraft, but from a third-person perspective for the most part.
Yeah.
And we jumped in. We had a great time. So go check out our first look, available now on the channel. All 2 hours of it.
It's weird because it's an open world action real-time strategy game.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's very unique. Of course, yeah, available on PlayStation now. Reviews are going quite well from Mojang Studios, and if you have Xbox Game Pass, it's available included in there, with it being a first-party studio. But we're not here to talk about Xbox. That's what the other show's for. We're here to talk about PlayStation, and that's what we're going to do. Richie, what have you been playing this week on the world of PlayStation?
On the world of PlayStation, nothing.
Great.
Nothing on PlayStation.
What have you been playing then elsewhere?
Bit of FIFA on Xbox and Octopath on Switch.
Having a good time?
I am. Octopath's a really good game. I'm just very much into the flow of Octopath now. I think I'm about maybe... It's hard to know. The game clock's saying about 60 hours in. Mm-hmm. I suspect that's massively overinflated because I have a bad habit of leaving the game on when I go off to do other stuff.
That's fair.
So I think it's more likely to be 45 to 50 hours, but still quite a significant time chunk. And I don't feel like I'm halfway through yet.
That sounds about right for a classic JRPG style game.
Yeah, I think this is going to be over a 100-hour game. I'm kind of glad I'm playing it on Switch though, rather than PlayStation, because I was thinking about getting on PlayStation. And the reason is, because I'm playing it on Switch, I'm not tempted by trophies.
So there's not that accomplishment.
So if it takes me 80, 90 hours to just roll credits and all the different major storylines for that game, I'm not going to look at the trophy list and go, right, let's go for another 30 hours to clean up. Because Switch doesn't have trophies, so it's like, well, I'm done.
Yeah, you enjoy the story and you get out, which is the great thing about not having that allure of trophies and platinum achievements.
But I've got a couple weeks left, I reckon, of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Octopath because In a way, obviously the first one didn't come to PlayStation. The second one has. PlayStation, we know, have this odd relationship with Square Enix where they get some games, quite a lot of games actually, it's exclusive, Final Fantasy Forspoken and such. But then on the flip side, it didn't sell that well. It didn't chart on PlayStation 5, to my knowledge. So do you think it's a bit of an odd one where the brand and IP is almost associated with Nintendo Switch so much that people don't even know it was released, possibly?
Possibly, with it, because originally it was a Switch. The first Octopath was originally a Switch exclusive. So that brand association is with Switch. I played it on Switch. I did actually have it on Stadia.
Yeah, it came to Stadia. Remember that, folks.
Yeah. But then later down the line, I think it must have been maybe a year or two after it came to Xbox. It's now since left Xbox.
Yep.
Or at least it's left Game Pass, at least. This is the first one, and then the second one coming over to PlayStation without the first one.
It's a bit of an odd...
Which I kind of think, if you like, it's one of them games where it is the second one, so it's not the new shiny thing, and there's other big games that come out at the same time. So this game is one of them. I think it's very much appealing to people who played the first one and loved it, which is pretty much everyone who likes. If you like JRPGs and you played the first one, it's basically for you.
And no doubt,
you kind of know. It's like it's not a game I would recommend to you, for example, Chris.
And no doubt you'd go back to the Switch because you'd gravitate towards where you enjoyed the 100+ hours of the first one. So naturally, you'd want to be in the same place.
What I did. Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, it's good to know that you're enjoying that one. And if anyone out there is playing on PlayStation, do let us know in the comments below. I've been checking out Richie, of course, in my adventure through parenthood. I'm trying to find these little pockets of gaming time in juggling it between going back to work after paternity leave. I've found myself really enjoying one of this month's PlayStation Plus games, which is Sackboy, A Big Adventure. It is a delightful little game, I'm happy to report. I've enjoyed the little Big Planet games over the years, many, many laughs. We've played around my house back in the day when we were a lot younger, just playing the daft games where you get attacked by sharks or bombs and you're all fighting over each other to get to the finish line. Lots of whimsical fun with Sackboy and all his cosmetics. And yeah, I thought I'll jump in, and it is very much just a nice, whimsical 3D platformer. I'm running around as Sackboy on this little adventure. It's got some nice music. It's got some actual real songs in it. There's Bruno Mars and stuff are playing. It's quite enjoyable. And basically, it's broken up into this kind of craft world, I believe it's called. And they are literally just little pockets that you jump into. You jump into a hole, and in the level, you have to collect so many orbs in a level, so many little gifts, which is the cosmetics, like Little Big Planet tradition. And you get from start to finish, you pull some things, you pop some puzzles, you punch some bad guys, and then you finish the level, and then you move on to the next one. And there's a small story associated to it, but for me, the important thing is each level is like 5 minutes tops. So in my time, it's jump in, do a level, maybe 2 at a push. Baby starts kicking off, right, okay, put it down. I haven't lost anything, I'm not committed to a story necessarily. It's not going to take me hours to grind out, it's just delightful. And if you've not played it or checked it out, it's a really good palate cleanser, I feel, if you're between massive games.
I think it's similar happens for me with Octopath, where Octopath, because it's effectively telling you 8 short stories plus side quests, so there's no like one massive, intricately complex narrative going on.
Yeah.
So you can go, okay, it's like I can just look at my map and go, I'm going to go progress the story on this character, go to the place where that is, and it might be like 20-30 minutes to play through that bit of story, that chapter. So it's very like kind of chapter based. Well, yeah, it's I do like that kind of little stuff where it's easy. It's easy. It's probably why I've got like 60 odd hours already in Octopath, because it is easy to pick up and put down. So I'm not doing the whole thing where when I was playing Hogwarts, it's like I was waiting for a time when I know I can play like 4 or 5 hours without interruption.
That makes perfect sense. But the interesting thing with Sackboy: A Big Adventure is it's a PlayStation exclusive. It was actually a PlayStation 5 launch game. It was probably one of the more overlooked ones because most people would opt to play Spider-Man Miles Morales than Sackboy. But in terms of being a mascot, he was very much a mascot of the PlayStation 3 era. And the question I'd probably ask you now, would you say Sackboy is a bigger mascot to PlayStation than AstroBot is now? Or would you say AstroBot's got the edge in the PS5 generation? Because they're very, very similar in terms of games, the family target audience, and they're both like, I think they're both awesome. I love them as cute little character mascots.
I think as it stands right now, if you only go right, which is the PlayStation mascot? I mean, realistically, they both are. It's AstroBot right now, and the reason I say that is because AstroBot's only decided to be the main thing to launch the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
What was it called?
Astro's Playroom is the bit.
Astro's Playroom was effectively the tech demo for the DualSense. And so that, for me, is like PlayStation going, this is our guy.
Yeah.
And again, Sackboy's Big Adventure, as much as he enjoyed it, it kind of just came and went.
Yeah, it did. It got drowned out a little bit by other launch titles, including third-party games. Remember, people were playing like Assassin's Creed Valhalla had not since launch, and we got a bunch of other massive titles like Call of Duty and stuff as well. So AstroBot was definitely the focus.
They basically went head-to-head, actually, at launch, and everyone was talking about how great Astro's Playroom is, and no one was talking about Sackboy's Big Adventure.
I mean, one was a £70 title, and one was free, packed in with your console. So I can see where the demographic would maybe lean. However, it is telling.
Contributes.
Yeah, it is telling that AstroBot, because let's face it, the AstroBot Playroom, it's a phenomenal game. If you've got a PS5 and you've not checked it out yet, it's one of the most fun I've had in a game. Just experiencing that DualSense controller being put through its paces was fantastic. And to this day, 2 years later, no game's really matched it since, which is typical of new technology.
I think that's just the way things tend to go. With like, you have to remember, like, I mean, it's probably a bit harsh me saying AstroBot's like Playroom is a tech demo, because it is actually just a solid game in its own right. It's just a solid collectathon platformer. But everything about that game is designed to show off every feature of the DualSense.
Yeah, indeed. It does it fantastically.
Where other games that have come out since, it's more like what feature makes sense for our game.
If another game dev tells me that pulling down the trigger, you'll feel a tension in the bow and arrow, it's like, I know, I get it.
Yeah, that's just a feature that should just be there now. With AstroBot, it was just like, right, we need to showcase everything. Because a part of this is probably a tech demo for developers as well, to show like different implementations of the features.
Yeah, look how wild and crazy you can get. It's it's definitely an interesting one. Let us know in the comments below who you think is the current third-person platform mascot. Is it Sackboy or is it AstroBot, in your opinion? It's very telling that they didn't use Sackboy as...
Rest in peace, Crash Bandicoot.
I mean, he's going to be owned by Microsoft within the coming months if Xbox get their way, so which is a crazy turn of events. But to kickstart this show, I wanted to do something a little bit different this week, because traditionally we dive into the news, and it's been quite a quiet week, all things considered. There are a couple of snippets we'll get to near the end of the show, but kind of jumping off the back of what we were talking about there regarding AstroBot and Little Big Planet, both mascots for Sony's PlayStation, both fantastic in their own right. I think they're adorable, and I'm having surprisingly loads of fun with Sackboy unexpectedly. So shout out to PlayStation Plus Premium. You've got a few points in the bank this month with me, and yeah, had a fantastic time with AstroBot, and I'm waiting for a full standalone release. I do think Team Asobo are working on that. Remember, they dissolved Studio Japan and put all the money essentially behind Team Asobo. So this game was received so well, it's folded one studio and built up everyone else. And closing one of your own studios in Japan is not easy.
There wasn't a VR2 game, was
there? Yeah, the PlayStation VR also had a pack-in AstroBot game as well. Yeah.
But there wasn't a PlayStation VR 2 game.
No, there wasn't.
Which is that's probably where I would have expected it to be.
Yeah, it was Astro's Rescue Mission, yes it was. And that, again, equally fun. It's the same game. I described it as Mario 64, but you're watching Mario from above. Like, your character is like floating around in the game, like as a giant godlike creature, and you get to watch him below you and run around underneath you, and you hold out your hands in VR to make platforms for him to climb on, and you push obstacles out his way. So you are interacting with him in this 3D space, and with all his little whimsical things like his jet boots and his punches and all the characters and stuff around him. So great VR game.
I can confirm as well, AstroBot Rescue Mission hasn't been ported to the VR2 yet.
Which is crazy, how they didn't have a launch title for this. But
it feels like it feels,
it's an
for
oversight.
me, I think, again, we've talked about PSVR 2 to death, and like, it feels like my target would be all first-party PlayStation VR titles to be over there.
Yeah, you would imagine. But to pivot then, before we get into the news, to the actual other studios, because PlayStation have been quiet for quite some time, and we're talking on the show time and time again, the rumours keep bubbling to the surface. PlayStation are going to have a showcase. They did drop a State of Play a short while back, which didn't really fill anyone's tank with any excitement, really. It was
Final Fantasy 16.
That
was the big focus.
It was a focus. And between the news this week, we thought, you know what? We're getting close to June. It's a quiet week. Let's actually have a look at this PlayStation Studios and just have a little bit of a chat about what we think they're up to. Some will be working on obvious projects. And going through this list, what it really highlighted to me, because of course we do an Xbox show as well, Richie, and last week with Redfall's conversation that we had, and with Minecraft Legends being received well, but it technically is being multi-platform. Reading through the list of studios and compiling the show notes, it just blows me away how good PlayStation's first party really, really is. I was like, getting together the trailers and the videos, and I'm just going after banger hit, AAA, stellar title after stellar title, known characters, beloved household names. And that's
up to 20 studios.
It's crazy. And then the bottom of that list is comprised, in my opinion, of Sackboy and AstroBot. And that's near the bottom. They're not your top tier marquee titles. And it's insane.
Yeah, but they have distinctive charm to them. It's like things on the Xbox side, like Hi-Fi Rush. It's not your top tier AAA title, but it's one of them games that really nicely pads out the library because it's got a game that's full of charm.
Yeah, it's Chai, isn't it? The main character in that, the young lad. I think he'll be an Xbox mascot going forward easily.
Oh, he's. I mean, that game is going to be in the game of conversation.
Indeed. I don't think it'll win, but it'll definitely be up there with it. I'd
be surprised if it does, but it's going to be in. If it's not in the game of it's going to be in some of the other. We're going to be talking about it in December.
Yeah, indeed. So to focus on the studios, then we'll start in Japan, native home of Sony PlayStation. We've got two studios predominantly over there. We've got Polyphony Digital and Team Asobi, who we've just spoken about and mentioned. Team Asobi, 100% for me, must be working on a new AstroBot title of some sort. They've had 2 years since launch. What do you think?
If I had to guess, it's Rescue Mission 2 for the PSVR 2.
Ooh.
And I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of them things they were hoping as a launch title for VR2, but didn't quite announce because it was maybe taking longer.
Yeah, they need a big splash in the months to come to really
elevate. It feels like
VR2.
VR2 needs more games. Team Asobi is kind of their tech demo studio.
Mm-hmm.
AstroBot's already done very well on PSVR 1.
Yeah.
So I think you could see a port of AstroBot Rescue Mission, full stop,
to
VR2, and then a sequel of some form. It might not be Rescue Mission 2, it might be something completely different. That's showcasing off more of like what are the controls called for VR2?
It's
not DualSense.
It's just the Sense controllers, I think.
The Sense
VR
controls,
Sense, yeah.
I think that's where, like, if I'm Sony and like, okay, Team Asobi, what's going to be the next project? It's like, we've got VR2, we're going to go all in on that to push it. It didn't work, but we're talking about decisions that have already happened here. That's where I would be pushing them.
Yeah.
Like, unless they have a passion project that they want to do somewhere else.
A smart move so resources wouldn't be wasted for me would be whatever the new AstroBot game is, it's fully playable in VR, but there's also a non-VR version. Because with the sales numbers we're seeing for VR2, I'd highly suspect they'd probably sell more units as just a third-person platformer as opposed to a VR-exclusive title, which is a shame, but if you're going to put assets into it, I feel like it's wasted on VR2 at this moment in time.
I would agree, but the way I described it as basically this is going to be your tech demo for VR2, I don't think you can do that. Because you'd have to embrace every aspect of PSVR 2 and really because you'd want to really showcase a game in that sense that can only be played in VR 2.
Yeah, true.
Like how like Astrobot's Playroom. Technically, you could put that on Xbox, but can you really, considering how much that game is ingrained in the DualSense?
Yeah, probably not. Is it probably maybe telling then if the next title from Team Asobi isn't VR, that PlayStation's faith in their own product maybe just isn't there? Like you said, realistically, this should have been a launch title. This is the team that's put out 2 stellar VR games now, and the next entry doesn't.
It depends what it is. My prediction is just based on how Sony have used them in recent years, with like the launch of PS5 and being so important to PSVR. That's where it makes sense for how they want to use Team Asobi, but that doesn't necessarily mean they could just go, you know what, we're going to make a like full-size Mario Odyssey sized game around AstroBot.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a 3D platformer.
Oh, that'd be so good.
that is going to be, it's like Astro's Playroom, but extrapolate that to the size of a Mario Odyssey.
I'd play it all day.
I probably would as well, because that game's great.
All day. So moving on from Asobi then to Polyphony Digital, which again I used to call Polyphony for like 20 plus years. Polyphony. They're the Gran Turismo team. That's pretty much all they've worked on since 1988. Based in Tokyo, Japan. Obviously, they've been supporting Gran Turismo 7's VR launch. It's arguably one of the best games on PlayStation VR 2 because it's taking the amazing, gorgeous-looking title that is Gran Turismo 7, which, let's face it, Gran Turismo games have always been pushing the apex of graphics, and the VR version is apparently superb. So it's racing in first person in the most beautiful rendition of that world you could possibly get. Do we think Polyphony will ever get away from GT, or is Gran Turismo 8 just inevitable in 3-4 years' time? The end of the PS5 life cycle, most likely.
I think it's Gran Turismo 8. I think that's what the studio's for, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've just looked at the dates, like Gran Turismo 6. I was thinking, maybe like Gran Turismo 7, March 2022. This year, it's been PSVR 2. Maybe like next year is when you go 8. Do you know when Gran Turismo 6 was released?
Oh, there's a long gap between them. There's a long gap.
Yeah, I've just checked up the dates just to kind of see what the cadence was.
Usually, you'd get 2 a generation. I think they usually bookend both parts of their generation. So with Gran Turismo 6...
7 was cross-generation.
It was a PS3?
Gran Turismo 6 was PS3.
Jeez.
It wasn't PS4. The only Gran Turismo to launch natively on the PS4 was 7.
Wow. That is insane.
Yeah. Gran Turismo 5, I'm teasing you a bit here. Gran Turismo 5 was November 2010.
Right. I remember Gran Turismo 5 well. That was the last GT game that I really committed to. I actually had a little keyring of the logo. Yeah. That sounds about right. That's
Gran Turismo 6, December 2013.
Wow. Well, yeah,
it's 9 years. So
yeah.
So Gran Turismo 8 could be next year or it could be next decade.
Wow. Most likely the next decade. So yeah, we're happy Polyphony are pretty much the GT team. That makes sense. They do amazing stuff, and yeah, shout out to them.
I mean, to be fair, if they're going to support Gran Turismo 7 for the entire lifespan of the console, that's not a problem.
No, not at all. Again, the good thing with racing games and cars in general is there's always new models that come out all the time. So if that roster's getting bigger and bigger of classic, vintage,
that'd
new...
be a cool way to do it. If it's like Sony just go to like Polyphony digital, I was still did the wrong thing. But if they just went, you know what? The cadence for Gran Turismo is early in the lifespan of the console, we're going to release one, and you're just going to support it with like DLC and season passes and all that kind of stuff as you get from games as a service for the lifetime of the console. And then Gran Turismo 8 will be like a launch title for PS6.
I'd take it. And then again, the great thing with Gran Turismo is it's not beholden to like a season, like a Formula 1 game or a rally game. It's just its own entity.
That's it.
And it has all the races within that. So yeah,
you can just keep adding content to it.
Keep doing it.
New tracks, new cars, new missions, races. I'm not overly familiar with how Gran Turismo plays out.
I just hope it doesn't get wacky and zany and goes all GTA style. Like, not that they have to, but I can just see it.
You can do it occasionally.
Yeah.
Like...
in a special edition. But moving on then, let's move over to Europe. We've got a couple of studios that we probably won't spend too long on because we're not too sure. More recently, they made the acquisition of Fire Sprite Studios recently. They
acquired
Firewall. Yeah.
Different studio.
What was that?
They acquired Firewall. Fire Sprite they've already owned before. They're different studios.
Okay, I'm confused now. These are the Fire Sprite are the guys who've just worked on Horizon Call of the Mountain, right?
No, sorry. Yeah, Fire Sprite is who worked on Call of the Mountain. Fire Walk is who they've just acquired.
So not Firewall. Yeah, that's the second, like the main story of the week. Yeah, that's fine. Yes, Fire Sprite, which they acquired not long back still, I believe. They picked them up after making the Persistence, and they helped Sony with the VR initial launch games. They're based in Liverpool, England. They just did Horizon Call of the Mountain in partnership with Guerrilla. Again, middling reviews. PSVR 2 is what it is. So they're clearly not working on anything new. They've been brought on most likely to work on VR support, it would seem, based on their heritage and their launch title. They've probably learnt so much working on the Horizon Call of the Mountain title. For me, Richie, I'm guessing they're just on to their next VR project, whatever that may be.
Yeah, either as a support studio to bring like a well-beloved PlayStation franchise to VR to support like someone like maybe a Naughty Dog or something, like, or like a Sucker Punch or something, to help bring something from them to VR. I think that's probably the purpose of the studio, to be honest.
Yeah, these strike me as what Blue Point used to do, just support and like remasters maybe, or PC ports or VR ports in this case. So that's fair enough.
Doesn't mean they can't pitch their own title. So again, Blue Point, where they remaster guys and then they pitch their own stuff, and now
completely. Pivoting away though to a more established studio, we've got Guerrilla, who of course of Killzone fame. We haven't seen a Killzone since the launch of the PS4 actually, so back in 2014. So that franchise is maybe it's on quiet mode. Maybe it's due a comeback, but of course we've got the wonderful Horizon Zero Dawn, recently Forbidden West, which is again just gone free on PlayStation Plus, a premium if you want to play that, an extra. And of course, as of this week, Richie, Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores DLC expansion has came out. I've purchased it, I've downloaded it, and as I mentioned earlier on, I'm chipping away at Sackboy because I just don't have the time yet to jump into it. I need to.
It's the classic thing. As I'll game, like, right, I've been looking forward to this game for ages. I'm going to play something else instead.
Yeah, bought it, installed it. £15.99, so not too expensive. It's getting good reviews, which we'll talk about in the news later on. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into this. However, I just need to find that pocket of time where I can sit down and give it maybe a good 2 to 3 hours. I might do it tonight, actually. It is the weekend. But Guerrilla, we presume, based on spoiler-free, the end of Horizon Forbidden West, that they just immediately move on to the third entry in that series, correct?
That seems, I mean, they've also got other stuff going on with like TV show and stuff. But I think everything they're doing with the Horizon franchise at this moment is years away.
They're all in on this IP, aren't they? Yeah. And there's that rumoured online co-op game, which, again, if you, me, and Rob could jump into Horizon and just mooch around and take down robot dinosaurs as a crew, that sounds awesome. Whether that's part of the third game or it's its own standalone free-to-play title, maybe?
I personally would prefer that to be a standalone title, but I think Guerrilla's got enough success that they could probably grow the team to manage. How Naughty Dog's kind of doing the same thing now, where they can manage 2 projects and can manage early production on Horizon free, and then also a Horizon multiplayer game, while also getting involved in like the TV stuff. And then Sony they have some studios that are support studios that could help out with stuff like that,
chip in and work on. Burning Shores, as I mentioned, it's doing well on Metacritic. I'm looking forward to it. It's getting kind of It's in 9s. It's doing quite good across the board anyway. It's getting review bombed at the moment, which is just one of them things we won't go into. But it's for reasons nothing to do with the game, of course. Something to do with one of the stories in the DLC apparently is triggering people on the internet. So we won't go into that here. But overall, it seems like amazing Horizon quality as you'd expect. PS5 exclusive DLC, we should point out. So you can't play this if you had Horizon on the PS4. Unlucky. However, apparently it really pushes the story on, and a lot of people have said it's the true ending to the game, disappointingly, in a way, that the ending and this is actually better than the ending in the main game, which to you and me, I think that's a bit of could irk us a little bit.
As someone who has no intention of buying it, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll play it eventually when I get around to it, and I'll tell you if it's worth really, really getting to, and we'll get into that. But back to our studios. Next up, we've got Housemarque, who, of course, famous from back in the day for games like Super Stardust HD, Resogun, which was another PS4 launch title. Recently, they put all their eggs in the basket that wasn't arcade, and they went all out to make us Returnal. Won tons of awards, lots of Game of the Year nominations, and something very, very different. Established in 1995 in Helsinki, Finland. They are now owned fully by Sony. It's one of their acquisitions in recent years. What do we think these guys are working on next, Richie? Because Returnal, a sequel is kind of, for me, it could happen. They could go all in on it, or they could just do a totally new thing. Because as well as it was received, it doesn't seem to have the prestige that a lot of other PlayStation exclusives have. I don't know about you, it just doesn't seem to have that same level.
It's hard to know, because it might find a second life because it is now on PlayStation Plus Extra. So if you have a PS Plus Extra subscription, which Extra is the tier that I would recommend people go for,
Same.
You have access to this game. So it might just be, it's not going to make the headlines and stuff if it's play-based, but it might just over a long period of time just slowly do numbers. Because it's kind of a bit of an evergreen title, really. It's with it being like like a roguelike sort of game. You can just keep going back to it and having fun again with that game.
It garnered a good strong cult following from those diehard people who love dying so many times. Like almost in the gap of between like the Elden Ring launch and a Souls game coming out, this kind of scratched that itch for a lot of people, I feel. And it came with all the polish and prestige you'd expect from a PlayStation exclusive. So, what's your money on there? New IP or sequel?
I think sequel, but it's a long way off.
Long way off. Last week we discussed Media Molecule. Of course, they announced they're closing down Dreams, so we don't really need to go into it here. Dreams is gone. It's no longer going to be a thing that's supported by the end of the year. As I mentioned previously, these guys established Little Big Planet, and then Sumo Digital came in, took over, made Little Big Planet 3, then also made Sackboy: A Big Adventure. So, in an ironic twist, Sumo Digital have made equal games that are in the Little Big Planet world as Media Molecule did, because they spent a decade making Dreams. To their own chagrin, they kind of screwed the pooch on that one. They did make a Vita title and Tearaway in between as well, but it's kind of almost like, who does Little Big Planet and Sackboy belong to anymore? And Media Molecule announced last week that they're no longer working on Dreams. They are working on a new project that isn't Dreams. Do you think, Richie, these guys get Sackboy back, or do you think he's almost outgrew the studio in a way?
There could be, but I don't know. I think if I was Media Molecule now, I don't really would want to take the studio back over. Like, you moved away from Sackboy to make Dreams, which is effectively a game engine stroke game style game. Make your own games within our game sort of thing. Do you want to go back to the thing you were doing before, which is something that you evolved from, or do you want to evolve the studio again to be something? Surely, if you're Media Molecule, you're looking at your Naughty Dogs, your Sucker Punches, your Gorillas, and go, we want to be in there in that conversation. Much
smaller studio, though, however, and I think they have downsized quite a lot through Dreams. Naturally, when a game goes for so long, you've got certain people who aren't required anymore, like UI designers. Like, if the game's running for years, you don't need those on staff.
Game development is... People move studios all the time. Like, it'll probably ramp up to where it needs to be probably quickly if they need it. And bear in mind, it is a Sony first party studio, so the access to talent is going to be amazing, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Because if you're a game developer, like, getting in one of these studios effectively gets you your foot in the door in all of these studios.
It's a great place to be. So do we think no Little Big Planet? Just a new IP.
Something new.
There are also a couple of support studios we won't really go into. I think London Studio, they'll be working on a new VR game. Again, shame they didn't have one at launch. Blood and Truth was fantastic for the original VR. Didn't have anything to showcase at the launch of PSVR 2, which seems like, again, another untimely miss on their part, not to have something out the gate. We have Nixes, who were recently acquired earlier last year. They were the studio who worked with a lot of PC ports. They seem like a support studio brought in to just do that.
So these are the guys who are making PlayStation games play worse on the PC and charge you more money for.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not their fault. Well, some of it actually probably is with the porting, if the port's bad. But yeah.
Same with, they acquired Savage Studios not long back. That's part of PlayStation's new mobile division, so we won't talk about that here. Just mobile games. We'll probably get Sackboy or Constant Runner game again, or Uncharted puzzle game.
You'll get a match-free Horizon game. Stuff like that,
XDev, formerly Liverpool Studio, they essentially, a lot of people don't know them, they basically work behind the scenes and helping third-party team support. So you've got the likes of like Until Dawn from Supermassive, you've got Detroit Become Human from Quantic Dream. Not Sony Studios, but because they're working on a Sony exclusive for PlayStation, these guys basically chaperone the publishing, the behind-the-scenes relationship.
They help the second-party studios.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, that's their role. So they don't really make much of themselves. I think recently they're working on the Rise of the Ronin game that's coming to PlayStation. But moving on, the big one for me I want to talk about is Bend Studio. So they're an interesting one for me. They're quite a large studio, famous for, in the past, Siphon Filter, way back in the day, and more recently, Days Gone. And the weird thing with Days Gone is I thought I really had a great time with Days Gone. It was kind of critically not received great. It had some problems with day one patches, and it got panned a little bit. But then the audience absolutely loved it, and the backlash the journalists got was basically the entire audience got behind this game and said, no, you were all wrong. The audience love it. But then PlayStation came out and said, we're not doing a sequel.
I think this is where the audience rally behind, those who played it really enjoyed the game, rally behind it. But I wonder, is this just a vocal minority, unfortunately? Did it not... In the end of the day, Sony's a business. If the IP doesn't sell well enough, no matter how vocal the support behind that game is, do they take a risk on another one when they could do something else?
You didn't play it, did you?
I didn't. It looked, to me, one of them... It looked absolutely fine as a game. It just, nothing about that game kind of really jumped out that I need to play this. I think it only got enough mindshare, as much mindshare as it did for me, because it was a Sony first party.
Yeah.
If it was a third party game, I wouldn't be... I just don't think I probably would have just... I don't know, I just didn't... Nothing jumped out at me.
Its marketing got caught up a little bit in the last... It looked like The Last of Us, but it wasn't. But it was zombies. But is it open world? Is it not? And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And
I think I would enjoy it if I played.
I think you really would. The UI design was super clean, sharp. The horde mechanics were fantastic and super scary. Like, some missions you're sent into a cave to retrieve like a beacon or something. And... The way they've got the engine running for these swarms of zombies are terrifying. If you think the World War Z zombies that we did here on the channel were kind of scary in the hordes, the detail, the speed, and the variety of Days Gone zombies is just like horror unto itself. So definitely want to check out. But my problem then sits with Ben is that they make gorgeous looking games. They made Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PlayStation Vita, which is not my favourite Uncharted game. There's no chance of that happening. But I do think it's better than the original Uncharted in terms of its story and its gameplay. So that's saying something, because I really enjoy the first Uncharted as well. There was rumours that they might be working on the new Uncharted game, which I think has been quashed a little bit now. So they have the credentials. It didn't land with Days Gone, but I feel like if they do another IP, they're looking for that golden ticket that really just hits home for them, because I think they've got a lot in the bank. Although they did infamously make Bubsy 3D, so maybe that's what's holding them back. Which has recently
been purchased by someone else.
Atari purchased 100 classic games. And Bubsy 3D is a terrible, terrible game. It holds a soft place in my heart because it was the last game my grandma bought me before she passed away. So it's like one of those, I'll never sell the game, I'll never get rid of it. But my word, what a shit game Bubsy 3D was.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Bubsy was actually, I think, was meant to be a fairly decent third-party 2D platformer. It's just one of them games that just did not make the jump to 3D well.
It was not good. No,
I suspect Atari have bought the rights to Bubsy 3D for the rights to other games, and it's
part of the deal. Yeah. Well, to be fair, they did have a recent resurgence with like Bobcat something. I can't remember what it was. Like a 3D resurgence that probably was a lot better, but still terrible. So Ben's Studio, we think new IP then, just something new.
Yeah.
Interesting to see. Maybe a shooter, because they used to work Siphon Filter. I feel like a Siphon Filter / Division hybrid could work. They have recently just released all the Siphon Filter games with trophies as part of PlayStation Plus Classics. So there's attention being paid to that franchise. Interesting.
Yeah, that could work.
Let's pivot on then as we move on through, again, crazy list of studios, right? We're 38 minutes into the show and we're running out of time. Blue Point Studios, they're working on a new IP, famous for the Shadow of Colossus remake, the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection remake, and the current Demon's Souls PS5 exclusive. All gorgeous. Blue Point do great stuff. I thought they were working on the new Uncharted game for a time. However, apparently that's not a thing. New IP, or possibly Bloodborne 2, Richie? They did they did Demon's Souls Wonders. What do we think? Is Bloodborne moving in-house with Blue Point? Blue Point? Or is it a totally new thing?
I think this is a totally new thing. I don't know what it could be. The reason I'm kind of thinking it's not Bloodborne is... Bloodborne's one of them weird things where the IP is kind of owned by Sony, but it's also not fully owned by Sony, so that I think there's more complications in there.
It was with FromSoft, but they do own the IP.
I think it's one of them. Sony own the IP, but can you really do that game without FromSoft? It feels like if you want to make a Bloodborne 2, you want FromSoft making it.
But they're so busy with all their other gems that they keep hitting out the park.
Yeah, which is probably why we haven't seen that game.
So do you think new IP then?
Yeah, new IP.
New IP. Fair deal, fair deal.
I mean, they've worked on quite a wide range of different styles of titles, like Uncharted to Shadow Colossus to Demon's Souls, just name three. It's like they will have learned a lot.
They've cut their skills fantastically in such a variety.
Yeah.
That's why no surprise when Sony acquired them in 2021, because they're working on such a good variety of genres, and they've done great on all of them. Like Shadow of Colossus looks fantastic. Demon's Souls looks absolutely stunning to this day. It's one of the best looking PS5 games. And the Nathan Drake collection, Naughty Dog do wonders, but the fact that they were able to polish it that extra little bit more and put it into a gorgeous collection of some of my favourite games of all time. Yeah, Blue Point, high in my esteem, and I can't wait to see what they're working on next. We mentioned Firewalk, so I guess we'll drop the news. The news is kind of just forming part of the show now.
The news!
Firewalk Studios was acquired this week to work on a AAA multiplayer exclusive. Not really much to talk about because this studio, in fact, haven't even put out a game yet. They were formed back in 2018 owned by a subsidiary team called Probably Monsters, which is their kind of umbrella company. PlayStation, in their press announcement, said that Herman Hulst in particular said that they're working on a mysterious title. A project is being headed by the former Destiny creative director Ryan Ellis. So there's a lot of talent over there. Since announcing our publishing partner, we've continued to be impressed by the team's ambitious ability to build modern multiplayer games that connect players in new and innovative ways. The studio shares our passion for creating inspiring worlds grounded in exceptional gameplay, and we want to continue to invest in their mission. So almost very similar to what they did with Haven, Richie, with Shannon stood still right over there. Was it Shannon? Jade Raymond, sorry. Yeah. Jade Raymond, yeah. It's almost like for like that. They made a partnership deal with them, and then before they even got the game out, they've clearly saw some potential that's good enough for them to go, you know what, sign the checkbook, let's buy this team. Rather than trying to acquire them for millions and millions in years to come when the game's a smash hit, we've seen them incubate something good enough that it deserves to be in-house PlayStation Studios. They've done it, who knows what it'll be.
I think this is PlayStation's answer to Call of Duty.
Wow.
There's a lot of first-person shooter kind of veterans in this team.
Yep.
And yeah, so they've probably been like working with them like independently. It's like, oh, with the Activision Blizzard deal looking like it's going to go through, I think Sony is one of them. Like, we need to up the tempo and like getting our first party Call of Duty competitor out there, because they might not win, they might not get it there at the first shot.
I mean,
so
a Destiny
veteran
take a couple of
goes
at the helm seems like the right place to start.
Yeah, like Destiny very much lauded for actually its gunplay.
Oh, undoubtedly. And then, ironically enough, they own Bungie as well now. So you can take that cross-pollination of in-house studios and take this small incubated team, tie them to Destiny in some kind of networking, and boom, you've suddenly got a classic first-person shooter, as you've mentioned there. So,
with Bungie, I'd want them to focus more on the sci-fi stuff, though.
Oh, undoubtedly.
If you think about Bungie's like history with Halo, then Destiny, they're all sci-fi first-person shooters. So you kind of, what's the next one?
Magic
for them.
Magic.
But with Firewalk, yeah, I'd kind of go, because it's a new studio, they've got a lot of experience making first-person shooters in the team, not necessarily as a studio.
Yeah.
And effectively, go.
See what you can make.
Compete.
See what you can make. So moving on, we've also got Haven, which I just mentioned. Yeah, Jade Raymond's team. This is essentially the Google Stadia exclusive that never was. It's whatever Jade was working on with her team over there, utilizing cloud gaming. They broke away from Google, made their own studio. Google allowed them to take all of their work with them. Idiots. Not Haven, the people at Google who let them go for free with all of their tech and expertise and talent. And then essentially PlayStation, similar to Firewalk, swooped in, bought them within mere months of them launching their new studio up in Montreal, Canada. And we're yet to see what it is, but it's going to be a live service multiplayer game, which is what PlayStation announced. There's like 10 of these in the pipeline. And these acquisitions are clearly focusing on that. But I wanted to bring a background, Richie, to the bigger titles, the bigger studios to round out this conversation. Insomniac, we know Spider-Man, we know Miles Morales, we know we're getting Spider-Man 2 is slated for this autumn, this fall. I can't wait for it. We've also got Wolverine in the works. Are Insomniac just too busy to do anything else? Is their slate fully booked for the next few years?
With Spider-Man 2 next, and then Wolverine next after that, I don't think we need to be worrying about what Insomniac are working on right now.
Do we think there's a little
Maybe-
Ratchet and Clank game in the works somewhere from like one of the smaller elements of the team?
Maybe. I think the last one was 2016, was it?
No. We had Rift Apart, which was PS5.
Oh, yeah, Rift Apart.
So like that's what I'm saying. Insomniac
could
ship
be.
these quality games out like nobody's business. They've done more work for PlayStation since being acquired than any other studio's output. It's insane.
There could be something further down the line. Maybe something somewhere between Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. But I don't think they need this.
No, they're doing
I think it's one of them with Spider-Man 2, like pretty much this year, and Wolverine is. Do we have a date for Wolverine yet? Is it? Yeah, so we'll probably get a date. Wolverine's probably 2025, maybe. I think we're okay waiting for that. I think when we've talked about the PlayStation need to announce games, Insomniac is not the studio we're talking about.
No. I'd love to see more of Wolverine. And what I'd love to really, really see, and it's a bit cheeky for me to ask, is Sunset Overdrive. Give me a port of Sunset Overdrive. On Xbox, it was made exclusively for Xbox, but it was made by Insomniac. So I hope there's something in that contract that lets them port it across, because it was a game it looked like fun. It'd be an easy win, though, if they could do it.
Yeah. If Insomniac hold the rights to the game, that the rights aren't with Microsoft, then that's something I'd give a smaller studio to pop forward. I wouldn't really want Insomniac working on that because focus on Spider-Man 2, focus on Wolverine.
Undoubtedly. It'd be a good little win, though, to get it across. If
And
maybe use one of the support studios to kind of wet...
I mean, Insomniac can be involved, but I don't think you need Insomniac working on that.
Interesting. Moving on then to some of the other big guns, we've of course got the Naughty Dog Last of Us Uncharted studio, famous for Crash Bandicoot, been Sony owned since 2001, I think it is now. These guys do not miss, and I cannot wait to see what the next... I can't wait to see what the Uncharted is, what they do with that, but not Naughty Dog. In-house, do we presume their slate is literally now Richie, Last of Us multiplayer, and then probably Last of Us 3?
Well, Neil Druckmann's already said that they are working on a new title. Wouldn't confirm whether it's The Last of Us 3. It may become a Last of Us 3. I would suspect it's not Last of Us 3, though.
You don't think?
I think with Last of Us being such a passion project for that team, they're not going to go ahead with The Last of Us 3 just because it's just because Last of Us 2 is a couple of years ago. They're going to wait until Neil Druckmann has that stroke of inspiration and figures out what the story of the next game is. Where does Ellie go from here?
Do you not worry, though, that the pressures of the success of HBO's show means we don't need a Game of Thrones situation where the show outlives the game and then people start to compare and create problems in their own endings for the game and the show?
I feel like, you could end Last of Us at 2. And it would be a satisfying ending. You
could end it at 1 if you really wanted to.
Yeah, you could do. So I'm not worried about that. And to be honest, what you could do is the way the show is structured. We've probably talked about this in the Clickcast. There's stuff that you could tell more stories that move away from Joel and Ellie in around Jackson. You could tell some more stories hey, we're going to tell he's a 5-episode story arc focusing around Tommy and what he was up to while after how he met Maria.
So what do you think then?
So
just this new IP?
I don't know, I think it probably new IP because that Naughty Dog seemed to just book that trend of they seem to be very much given full free license to do whatever they want by Sony. Because if you're thinking about it, the fact that they're not making another Uncharted game is kind of an odd business move from Sony.
When it would
That's why money. I kind of think there's that precedence. Yeah, it would absolutely print money, which is why I think there's that precedence why they're not going to be forced into making Last of Us 3 until they feel it's ready to go, till they know what that game is going to be, and they know they've got an absolute gem.
It's insane to
Because
think...
why wouldn't you trust them right now?
Oh, I mean, it's insane to look at their heritage and just go, Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, Nathan Drake Uncharted, then The Last of Us. For the last 20 years, they've been putting out stellar pillars in the gaming industry, and they haven't missed yet since the 90s, which is insane. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to whatever the new Factions multiplayer game is, which we're hoping to hear about this year. Like, that should be... I think that is going to be launched this summer. So we've got, like, the big games. We've got Spider-Man, hopefully, to bookend the autumn. But I think this summer, we need to have a quick turnaround time.
Is this summer a bit too close?
I mean,
because
Last of Us Part 2 was, 2020? It's like, come on.
Yeah, but the name... Like, the name's not even confirmed. It's not confirmed to be called Factions. In interviews, Neil Druckmann called it the Last of Us multiplayer game when he was asked specifically about Last of Us Factions.
Yeah, true.
Which suggests to me that it's clearly it's not confirmed. He's not allowed to say the proper name of it.
Yeah.
And it's end of April. Summer's around the corner.
Yeah, true.
It feels a little too close.
I'm just hoping because I want.
I'm thinking autumn.
Yeah.
I think we'll hear about what this game is. This is going to be part of in probably Summer Games Fest. This is going to be the big push for them. For Naughty Dog, at least, and we'll probably see it at the back end of the year.
Or maybe when the Blu-ray comes out of the TV show in July, it'll come in with a code for Last of Us multiplayer. We'll see. Some smaller studios, Pixel Opus, they put out Concrete Genie. They were acquired by Sony a little while back. Make smaller games, smaller indie games. One would usually say. Concrete Genie, I had a delightful time with it. Got the platinum trophy in it. Definitely a smaller title, which was actually kind of screwed over by its release date. They did no marketing, and I believe they launched it. What was it? There was another massive title or another product that they launched at the same time, which basically overshadowed the entirety of the marketing campaign for Concrete Genie. Was it a product? Was it VR or something? Something launched that got in its way, essentially. But the game's fantastic. There are rumours swirling around that they're looking at a new Sly Cooper game. In collaboration with the Sony Pictures Animation Studio. There are also rumours, which is my favourite rumour, Richie, which is they're working on a tie-in to the upcoming Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse game. So basically, a supplement Spider-Man game that's got a more cartoony art style. Could you...
With some input from Insomniac.
But not from Insomniac, could you imagine?
No, but having Insomniac's input, because Insomniac know how to make a perfect Spider-Man game. They've done it 2 times already.
Mechanical elements, the cute, whimsical design of both the movies and Concrete Genie.
Let's not forget about the animated suit in that game.
Yeah, they look great. So it's almost like the blueprint is there to do it.
Oh, yeah, I want that game.
I would I would play Spider-Man 2 at the end of this year, but if you were to give me a Across the Spider-Verse tie-in movie thing where I get to play as an animated Spider-Man and maybe like a short Miles Morales-esque experience, I'd lap it up. Can't get enough Spider-Man.
We actually talked about Hi-Fi Rush earlier. In the show. That has a very comic booky art style.
We need more of that.
Imagine taking the gameplay from Insomniac's Spider-Man with the art style of Hi-Fi Rush, but with the lore of the Across the Spider-Verse.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Sold. San Diego studio they just work on the MLB game, kind of like Gran Turismo studio. They're now porting to Nintendo Switch and Xbox, so they'll just probably, in fact, have tripled the workload just by proxy of that MLB relationship. So they'll be busy. Of course, we've got the one and only Sony Santa Monica, just recently off the back of God of War Ragnarok. I guess the vibe, Richie, is that God of War's maybe done for a while. I don't think the franchise has ended, but I don't think we'll see another God of War entry immediately.
The Norse arc is done. The Norse saga with Kratos is done. Mm-hmm. I think you could see a spin-off Atreus game. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that will be Santa Monica leading that. I think that's when you give that as a project to one of your other up-and-coming studios to kind of cut the teeth on.
Awesome.
In association with Sony Santa Monica. So Cory Barlog would be kind of being an executive producer on that game, overseeing what the development.
Well, he's off on another project, isn't he? Because he wasn't director on Ragnarok. Yeah. So he's been working away on something for a few years now, behind the scenes at Santa Monica. Interesting stuff to see with that one. Of course, Santa Monica previously, it was the God of War studio. That's all they've ever done is work on God of War. So to say they're breaking away from God of War, I almost think it's required of them. Similar to Guerrilla, I think.
Yeah, they need to.
If you're working there, it's great. And don't get me wrong, God of War, the reboot games, is some of my favourite games of all time. But I think if you were working there, you must have some stuff bubbling under the surface, some creative juices where you're we want to do something different. You've got your acclaim, you've got your Game of the Year awards, you've got that prestige. now do what Naughty Dog did and pivot and do something completely new. Like, do something for PlayStation that can just elevate another IP out of nowhere.
I think that's a good comparison. The Naughty Dog after Uncharted 3. Mm-hmm. That's where they're at right now.
Absolutely.
They're ready for that next thing, the next pillar and what that studio's going to be.
And they'll always have God of War to come back to. Maybe every other year. Yeah. But yeah, I completely think Santa Monica are ready for that next big thing. And then kind of rounding out our studios, we won't, again, I don't want to go into all of like the smaller support studios, but Sucker Punch, you and me, Richie, absolutely adored Ghost of Tsushima. My game of the year that year, undoubtedly. I've played through it in its entirety twice now, getting the platinum, did all the Ishi Island DLC.
Same.
This team are just... I mean, you know what? The Infamous games, I wish we got more Infamous games because they're super fun as well. It's almost like these studios, they do 2 IP at a time, but then unfortunately one has to be left behind for the others to almost flourish.
But again, as I mentioned, with like giving like a Trace game to one of the up-and-coming studios that Sony have been acquiring, Infamous could be, we're going to hand that over, bring it back.
Did you play a second
Infamous as well? Yeah. Bear in mind, Sony kind of doing this multimedia thing as well. They're getting more involved with movies and TV shows. Like we've seen just The Last of Us. Click a cast, go watch it if you haven't already. Infamous, there's a TV show in that.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is one of them franchises. It's a beloved franchise. It could be a passion project for a smaller studio, up-and-coming studio from Sony. Or Sucker Punch could just expand the team to do multiple projects. And then you could get that a TV show going, or a movie or something. There's something there. Or you could go a completely different way. Go animated with a TV show for that. Well, because with animated, you can go nuts with the power system without it.
Indeed. Well,
you can be a lot more creative without having to have the same sort of budget.
Infamous was essentially PlayStation's superhero game before Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man took that mantle and just went, I'm going to win everything with this. And then Infamous moved on to Ghost of Tsushima. I'm so glad they did, because Ghost of Tsushima is just, chef's kiss, fantastic. And this studio just working on a sequel, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. They are also the creators of Sly Cooper. So that could be their like Ratchet and Clank interstitial game they could put out with a smaller team. Or, like you keep saying, is past Sly Cooper, off to another studio, make us a small little entry title that revitalizes the IP, maybe more family friendly, because that's what we always kind of critique Xbox and Sony for, is not having family friendly titles in the bank like Nintendo do, and Nintendo flourish off those things.
Stuff like Sly Cooper, Sony's not banking on Sly Cooper to sell consoles anymore, but is a beloved franchise. It's almost a perfect title for a smaller studio to kind of cut the cloth on. The IP's already established. They don't need to worry about how the IP will be received. They can focus on making a good game. They still have the guys around who made it initially, so they have that support from them. And it's kind of like, okay, here you go. You make this game. If this game does really well, we can start listening to pitches to other ideas you have.
Absolutely.
And it's bringing them up.
Yeah. But in their entirety then, Ghost of Tsushima 2, no doubt. Looking at all those studios, though, can you see what I mean when I was pulling the show notes together now and looking through that list we've just broken down over the last hour? And my word, what a wealth of IP and awesome video games that all have new things in the works, sequels, follow-ups, new breakout franchises. And no wonder PlayStation's smashing it out of the park, right? It's insane. Like, if you need a reason to own a PS5, we've just rattled off about 20 reasons right there.
And the thing is, you hear behind this, like, scene stuff, if you're watching, like, dev diaries and stuff that they occasionally do, all these studios talk. They talk to each other.
Synergy.
They share tips and tricks and stuff, like, oh, how did you solve that problem in your game? And all that creates this kind of collaborative environment across a network of 20 studios.
And we haven't even mentioned, but it goes beyond that with Hideo Kojima using the Decima engine from Guerrilla to produce Death Stranding, and then subsequently the sequel that's due out in the next few years. Which, again, fantastic games unto their own right. So, amazing time to be a PlayStation fan. And the best part about it all, Richie, is we have no idea. That's all just us theorizing because they haven't told us anything for about 2 freaking years yet. So whatever this showcase is in June, they could go as hard as they want on just singing the praises of the brand, the console, and what the future looks like for PlayStation fans.
Like, we've talked about roughly 20 studios there. A showcase that consisted of 4 of them would be epic. Like if you get like Naughty Dog talking about factions, and you get Insomniac talking more about Spider-Man 2, and then maybe touching a bit more on Wolverine, although I doubt we'll see anything of Wolverine till after Spider-Man 2 drops. Maybe you get a first peek at something like Haven's doing, or what Sucker Punch are working on. Like, all these kind of things, like Guerrilla probably not going to show a game, but you could see something to do with the Horizon TV show.
Yep.
Like,
so much stuff.
This could be like Sony are going to have this Sony showcase that they've got the next thing they're planning.
In June is rumored.
They've got in June, yeah. They're going to have to do a lot of work to maintain hype.
Just a bit of dousing some fires out there and dampening expectations.
See, the last one went, this is about Final Fantasy 16. Set the expectations. You know that the focus, this is going to be Final Fantasy 16. We're going to throw another few bits in there. But
that's the difference, I think, between a state of play and a PlayStation showcase. We haven't had a showcase since the launch of the console, pretty much. We've had a couple of state of plays in between. Like you said, the state of plays usually give us a kind of a heads up of what's included. A showcase is all... Everything is on show, so not long to wait, hopefully. Rounding out the show,
we've got Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth as well this year.
Yeah, that I personally don't care for, but you'll be absolutely gushing over it when it comes out day one. So yeah. Second-party deals and third-party deals out the wazoo as well, unlike Forspoken. But rounding out the show with a couple of bits of news, Richie. Of course, the news is always brought to you by our Helix Heroes. This is probably the latest we've ever introduced the news to the show.
They're properly prepared PlayStation perusing points.
AKA... The news right at the end, rounding out the show. A couple of things that I probably want to touch on. We've discussed plenty throughout the show regarding PlayStation. To quickly recap, PlayStation 5 console sales continue to surge. They have seen a 369% year-over-year sales increase across Europe, which is insane. Partially down to stock supplies, no doubt. But I guess that's just reinforced by the hour-long conversation we've just had about why they're doing so well, because they have the games. They have the games in abundance, and the quality is there to back that up. And in other hilarious news, is that also means that the scalpers, all those dickheads out there who tried keeping these in stock on eBay and flogging them on Facebook Marketplace and stuff, they're all starting to see the fruits of their labour backfire now, because the game prices, of course, are plummeting, because you can buy them anywhere legitimately. So all of them on the shelves or stashed away in people's garages. Haha, now you've just got a false sunken cost into 7 versions of a console that people can just go and get from their local shop or Amazon now. Yeah, don't you love to see it, Richie?
Yeah, because the reason I hate scalpers is because, one, they add nothing. All they do is make things that you want more expensive.
Yeah, to their own benefit.
And then that makes... To their own benefit, they're not adding anything, they're not contributing anything, they're not like a distributor, they're just taking it off a shelf so you can't have it, then asking you for some money so you can have it.
Yeah.
Like,
they're essentially a really bad delivery person who charges you extortionate amounts for the delivery of a product that you want. It's horrible stuff.
And it just ruins everyone's fun.
Yeah, completely. They're just prying on people who maybe are at work or asleep when the pre-orders go live, essentially. But we won't spend too long on those people. A couple of new final bits of news. We also got an announcement of Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, which we will talk a little bit more about on XPass, but I thought I'd definitely need to bring it up in this show because Hogwarts Legacy sold way, way more copies on PlayStation than it did Xbox. And you and me both have the Platinum now. So Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, of course, Quidditch not involved in... Hogwarts Legacy. Sam and Peg's character, the headmaster, put a stop to that several times over. They reiterate throughout the game, annoying to some. Should have probably been included. Might be in the sequel. Who knows?
I don't think it needed to be, because I think then you're adding too much into the game, and it's another complete set of mechanics as well.
But you're already flying around on a broom, so half the work's already
flying
done.
around on the broom and flying around the broom playing a sport are not the same thing.
I mean, maybe Quidditch just isn't that fun. Have we ever thought about that?
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that over on XPass, which went live yesterday, actually. Unless you're a Helix Hero, one of the many people who support us on the channel, and you get this show early, along with stickers and badges next to your name. Talking the PS goes live. Usually every Sunday we get up, sometimes actually on a Saturday. So if you want this show early, you can support us from as little as 99p. If you click join on the YouTube video below, down in the description, you'll find all the information you need to do. But Richie, I think we'll round out there for this show. It's been an interesting one. We've done things a little bit differently. Do let us know in the comments below if you've liked this approach. We're very open to taking topic suggestions or your questions, which you can write in to our Discord. The link is also in the description below. Hundreds of you over there join in chat every single week, sharing all news across the gaming world. There's some wonderful, fine folks over there who we chat to pretty much on a daily basis, actually. It's a very vibrant community, and we thank you all for tuning in and watching this very week. Rob will no doubt be back as well. We'll have a live stream lined up for this Thursday or Friday, so don't forget to keep it locked to the channel. Like, subscribe, and you should ring that bell so you're kept in the loop. And do me a favour, share it with some people. Share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. Let's get the algorithm up, Richie, because we're starting to see a little bit of growth in the channel once again after the stagnation that was Google Stadia's demise. So thank you for supporting us here on this PlayStation podcast, Talking the PS, and everyone who's tuned in for this week's episode 45. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
We've been Talking the PS, and remember, folks, play whatever makes you the happiest. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.